Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a horror film from Canada, English language, released in the year 2018, directed by Francois Simard, Anouk Wissel and Johan Carl Wissel, and this film is called Summer of '84. So Summer of '84 is set in 1984. You've got the suburbs where a group of teenagers live. Now these teenagers are best friends, they're doing what teenagers do, they're talking about girls, they're looking at porn, they're creating mischief, just living their lives in a very peaceful existence. But that peaceful existence is about to become disturbed when news gets out that there is a serial killer on the loose. Now this serial killer is targeting kids aged 12 to 16, and these friends actually fit that age bracket. So they're very concerned that they're going to be the next victims unless someone can actually identify the serial killer. Now no one really has an idea, but one of the teenagers comes up with the theory that the serial killer is in fact their next door neighbour who happens to be a police officer. So no one believes him at the start, but eventually he manages to convince his friends to go on a surveillance mission to try and uncover what this policeman is actually doing behind closed doors that is creating a lot of suspicion. So whether or not the paranoia is in fact reality, something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Summer of '84. When I saw the trailer of this movie, I thought of Stranger Things. Now Stranger Things, basically it was about the kids, the dynamic of childhood friendship, and basically giving childhood and childhood innocence that heroism that not a lot of other films do. When it comes to heroism, you think of adults. You think of adults being strong enough to fight back, but when it comes to kids, they're not really associated with heroism. And so I think Stranger Things did that very well. It was basically up to the kids to show what they're made out of and try and save the world, and that's what Summer of '84 does. And I think that is a positive and also a criticism they have of the movie, is that it doesn't really stretch out and make an identity of its own. I always thought of Stranger Things when I was watching this movie, and so that was the biggest criticism to the film, but I thought this movie was very fun. This is a movie that understands what it is to be 1980s, whether it's the very vivid colouring and that atmosphere that 1980s horror films created so well, or even the brilliant soundtrack. I thought the soundtrack was really a strong 80s sort of vibe to it, and so fans of 1980s horror films are going to really appreciate what Summer of '84 brings to the table. And you've also got a lot of shades of Stand By Me, by a Stephen King adaptation. You've got Disturbia with Shia LaBeouf. You've got films, that Stranger Things sort of emulation there, and you've also got Alfred Hitchcock, basically Rear Window. What is your neighbour up to? Can you be sure that your neighbour is in fact the good person that he makes out to be, in the facade of your public image? And so I thought that there were so many ideas used in other films that combine and gel together to make just a really fun movie. And the movie is very self-aware, and that's something I can give it credit. I thought the production levels were absolutely fantastic. The acting between the kids, it was hit and miss. Some of the banter was actually quite decent. Some of it didn't work as well, but I thought the acting overall was fairly good. I thought the overall police officer, the neighbour, had a lot of shadiness to him, had a lot of curiosity. Are these kids onto something? Or in fact, are they just paranoid? And the fact that you don't know whether or not you can trust your own mind can be very, very scary. And that's what made, basically Rear Window very scary. That's what made Shia LaBeouf's film Disturbia scary in some parts. I thought Disturbia wasn't a very good film, but it did have shades of Alfred Hitchcock. It actually had shades of brilliance that makes that film worth watching. And that's the best way I can sum up Summer of '84, is that it's not a terribly unique idea, but it's an idea that gels all of its ideas into a point where it's more of a homage to great films as opposed to a movie making its own presence. And that's unfortunately, as I said, the biggest problem. But I will say that the movie goes down very dark corners, so it's a very hardened version of, say, Stranger Things, and so it's not a PG-13 rated film. So although it's depicting childhood heroism, it's not a movie for children. It's a movie that is a little bit darker, and the violence is few and far between, so that's something I liked. I thought it relied on its psychology a little bit more than the actual visuals, but when the violence does hit you, it shocked me, and I really liked the ending, and that came really out of left field. I wasn't expecting these directors to actually create the ending that it creates, and it just gives you that sense, alright, well, childhood innocence, it doesn't always, come out the way you want it to, and so it's not always a fairy tale, and I really like the dark ending that this movie goes for, and so that was all very good. But as I said, the biggest problem is that, yes, it does use a lot of ideas from other films, but it can't create its own identity. Is that, yes, I kept thinking of Stranger Things. I kept thinking of The Burbs with Tom Hanks. Basically, suburbia. Not only is it children that you don't associate with evil, but you don't associate the suburbs with evil. The suburbs is peaceful. The suburbs is out of the way. It's not the hustle and bustle of busy lifestyle of the cities, but this is where evil has basically introduced itself into a very peaceful community, and that community is going to be rocked, and so it's up to these children to save it. And so yes, that is all very good. It's basically using basically evil in a way that you don't associate evil with, but it just doesn't break free from the ideas. Yes, it's paying homage, but that homage has that constraints to it where you feel as though, all right, well, I've seen all this before. And so that was something that I didn't like as much. I thought that the predictability was still unpredictable because, as I said, right at the end it does take you by surprise by, you know, the avenue it takes. But unfortunately, as I said, I just couldn't shake the fact that this was trying to be a fan-made film of Stranger Things, and also the other ideas. I thought, okay, they're very good, it makes the film worth watching, but it just prevents it from being a brilliant movie because it just doesn't create an identity that stands alone. So overall, for Summer of '84, I still enjoyed it. It's still definitely worth your time, but it's not the brilliant sort of clever film that a lot of people make it out to be. So overall, for Summer of '84, going to give this one 3 stars. Go out there and see it. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.